Hi, I'm Andy Villamarzo with SBLive Sports, and thank you for joining us for our 18th episode of The Coastal. And bring on a special guest, a good friend, a guy who's been doing this probably longer than I've been around. But he knows everything about Polk County in terms of high school football, basketball, anything you want to know. Mr. Bill Kemp. And Bill, thank you for coming on with us. And I know you've been catching games every week and seeing all the Polk County teams. And well, I mean, it's the first high school football season in a long time where Bill Castle is not a head coach. So I would say that is the one thing that's kind of changed.
Well, Andy, great to be here. Thanks for having me. And yeah, as soon as the season started, you were already thinking this is a castleless summer starting here, castleless fall. And he was just on my mind again today. He's lurking out there, though. Trust me.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think any Lakeland Dreadnought football season, as long as he's wanting to be out at football events or games or practices, he's gonna pop in every now and again because it's just in his blood. I know winning that state championship last year in Class 4S was something memorable for him, and it's a great way to go out as a champion. And well, I mean, speaking of the Dreadnoughts, why not just get into it with Lakeland? Obviously, they're the returning champions from last year, and they're looking to do it again. But they got a couple losses this time around. They went last season undefeated, didn't lose a game. This year, they've put together a very tough schedule right off the bat. Miami Norland at home. You were at that game, and then you were also at their other loss, which was against St. Joseph's Prep of Pennsylvania, which is a nationally ranked team. I mean, just those couple losses, even though Lakeland lost those games, Marvin Frazier, first year head coach, longtime assistant, he's got these guys still feeling like, hey, we can still win this thing. We can still win another state championship. So, I mean, what's your feelings on the Dreadnoughts just heading into this kind of last stretch before the postseason?
From day one, I was kind of, just watching the fans in the stands on the sidelines to see how they were going to react because they've never, I mean, the man had been there 50 years. And,
Yeah.
these people had never seen Lakeland coached by anybody else. Frazier had been there as an assistant. So I thought, God, if they get off to an 0-2 start or something, is this poor guy going to be feeling the heat? And they started 1-2. But as you said, St. Joseph out of Philadelphia, Miami Norland, two great teams, and they had to rebuild a little bit. He lost like 30 players going into the season between graduations and everything else. But you know what? They won 5 straight in a row.
Yep.
And Lakeland is Lakeland. And even more impressive to me, they're 11 straight quarters now without that defense surrendering a point. They've got 3 shutouts in a row, I think 4 on the season. They gave up 2 points to Lake Gibson a few weeks ago in that rain shortened game in the third quarter. But that was a safety. The offense surrendered getting tackled in the end zone, when they had it first and 10 on the 1 yard line. Since then, the defense, 11 straight quarters, 3 games in a row, nothing. Haven't surrendered a point. So they're hitting it. And you got to tip your hat to Marvin Frazier because if he was feeling any heat at all, he did not show it. And that's hard to do. I mean, you take over that job, you're under the microscope. And if you win, everybody's just going to say, well, you inherited a dynasty. If you
Yep.
lose, it's all your fault. So I looked at it as a no-win situation. And, now talking to Marvin after the games instead of Castle, I realize how smart this guy is, how on top of it. He's not nervous. And they've had just a bucket load of injuries, especially at running back. They've been running their 4th-string running back, a sophomore here and there. He's getting the most out of his bench players, and his defense has stepped up and answered the call for him.
Yeah, and just that backfield. I mean, obviously, you got Rucker back there. Just they have a slew of guys. I mean, I feel like we could go on probably 3, 4 deep, but injuries. But Xander Smith came over in the offseason, came from Palmetto.
And he's
Uh,
been hurt.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, Xander's been hurt too. I mean, they've had to uh use different guys back there. I think Xander is just getting back healthy. It's going to be real interesting to see what Lakeland looks like this weekend and next weekend if they get everybody starting to come back. But they've shuffled in three quarterbacks every game now. And we've even seen Carlos Mitchell jump in there and take a snap here and there. And of course, most fans should remember Carlos from Lake Wales, state
Yep.
championship last year. And that's another team. They've won 22 straight in a row right now. It's got to be one of the longest streaks in the state. So they were 15-0 last year. They're off to a 7-0 start without Carlos. And I
Yeah.
thought he was the best player in Polk County last year. Maybe not the best as far as recruiting talent, yada yada, but the most impactful of the season. Because
Yeah.
great fit for Lakeland, especially when they're hurt, because he can do anything. And I watched this kid last year, 2 games in a row, did the hat trick. He caught a pass for a touchdown at wide receiver. He intercepted a pass at defensive back and returned it for a touchdown, a pick six, and returned either a punt or a kickoff for a touchdown. Twice in a row, back-to-back weeks, he got all three. I mean, I've never seen that. I say, yeah, after 28 years, I've never seen a kid do that. And you were there for the state championship game, and what a second half he had in that game against Mainland. So it was close.
Yeah, and speaking of Carlos Mitchell's old team, Lake Wales, I mean, these guys are back to it. I mean, it's like they didn't miss a beat. I would say at least defensively they haven't missed a beat. I know offensively they lost a lot of firepower. Carlos Mitchell's kind of part of that. But you got Rashad Orr in the backfield. He was a transfer in. And this defense, though, only 27 points, Bill, all season long. You think about 7 games, only allowing 27 points. There's teams that allow 27 points and a half. This team only has allowed 27 points the whole season.
Right. And you divide 7 into that, that's less than 4 points a game. It's 7-0. So it comes out to 3 point whatever. And that's incredible. And it's not one guy. I've either been at the Lakeland game or another one. I haven't got out to see him this year. I think I saw him 4 games last year. And I'll be heading that way shortly. But
Yeah.
I'll pull up their defensive tackle stats right away as soon as they're posted. And it's not one guy. You will see 5 guys with 9 tackles, whether it's 7 solo and 2 assisted or whatever. But 5, 6 guys, and it's great. It's great. And the hardest thing they say to do in sports is repeat. And Tavares Johnson has this team on a mission. And if someone would have told me a year ago, after they won the state championship, they were going to lose Carlos Mitchell, and they would be where they are now, 7-0, and good luck scoring on them, I don't know if I would have bought into that. So he's got to be really respected for what he's done. Now, here's a situation, too. He took over for a legend in Polk County, Rod Schaefer. Schaefer was at Lake Wales forever.
Yeah.
He got into the Final Four a few times. In Lake Wales, a 100-year-old program could never get that state championship. So Tavares, a lot like what Marvin Frazier is going through now at Lakeland, he took the heat, and he had a losing season, and they're not used to losing down there. And he just kept his head up. He kept those kids there. They used to say there's something different in the water down at Lake Wales. I don't know what it is, but they always seem to have great character. When you talk to those players around the schools, and for 10, 12 years, I've been going over there talking to them, and they're always great kids. They're very respectful. They're great athletes. And Tavares has done a wonderful job with them, and he delivered that first state championship last year. And we were out at the Polk 7-on-7 before last season, which they won. And it was probably the last week of July, 110 degrees, whatever it was, not a cloud in the sky. And during the break, I got Tavares over, sitting on the tailgate of my pickup, turned the tape recorder around, and I said, all right, what do you got? He goes, and he was not messing around with me. I could tell. He goes, Bill, I got a special team. We're going to win it all. I said, whoa, Tavares, win it all? I expect the ninth grade kid to say that or something. Not coming from you. You've been around. He goes, Bill, we're going to win the state championship. I've got a special team. And then he went out and won the 7-on-7 that day, and then won every football game he had last year. And he hasn't lost since, 22 in a row. So he knew what he was talking about. He knew what he had. He knew what the competition was. They haven't lost since going up to Ocala Vanguard 3 seasons ago now. So in the playoff game.
31 of the last 34, Bill, they've won. The Highlanders, I mean, I don't think they really know too much about losing when it comes to – and I got to visit Legion Field for the first time when they played Sebring, and I think it's just kind of typical to how they play. I mean, 7-0. I think if you ask Tavares 7-0, 28-0, 50, 6-0, he would take a 7-0 win. Because at the end of the day, you go to the House of Pain over there, as I see they have that at the press box. They make sure you leave knowing that you're going to feel it probably the next day if you're a player. So
and there's never an empty seat in the house over there, even when they had a losing season. And I look around now because of phones and this and that. There are some places like Lakeland that are always packed. They're going to be packed. And Lake Wales is one of those places at Legion Field. Always packed in. Everybody's there. It's still that community feeling that you would see at games in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And for the people out there listening, if they've never seen a game at Lake Wales, go. You'll have a wonderful Friday night and go see some good football.
Well, place that's been starting to kind of fill up their stadium because of the winning. They started to kind of change things around. The Bartow Yellow Jackets. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the job that Tyler Eden has done. I know they've lost 2 in a row here, but I mean 6-2, and that 6-0 start, I think he had a lot of people buzzing heading into that Lakeland game. And I know Lakeland came away 30-2 winners, but still, just to kind of come off the season they had, Eden comes in, creates this buzz about Bartow, just kind of talking about the job he's done, kind of the difference you feel about them. I mean, what is it that makes Bartow different than years past?
Well, when you change coaches, you gain players, you lose players. And they bought into his personality and what he's saying. And the players will be the first ones to tell you that. Because when you ask them, why are you 6-0? Why are you 5-0? Why are you 4-0? And when I was asking those questions, Coach Eden. We like what he says. We believe in him. And there's another one I did not think could get to 5 or 6-0 with the new coach. They're going to have a new style. They have to learn a new playbook, all kinds of things. And they bought in and they did it. Now, I just didn't see them going over to Lakeland and winning. That's right. A whole different thing. You got, Lakeland's got horses that other programs don't have. But they fought hard. And so he's got it going. I think he's going to be there for a while unless somebody comes along and, offers him something higher up in the college ranks. But Bartow is a lot like Wales, where it's got that community feeling. It's a special school. A lot of basketball state championships out of there. Terrence McGriff's won 3 since he's been there, probably shooting for a 4th coming up soon. The cheerleaders have won 8 state championships, 2 or 3 national championships. And so there's that community thing in Bartow. And he has the personality to fit right in with that. So I only see him getting more and more players next year coming over and getting stronger. I wasn't surprised he lost at Lakeland. I was a little shocked about the Haines City loss. So I don't think anybody saw that coming.
Well, I mean, nonetheless, starting off 6-0, kind of changing the culture a bit over there. Eden's off to a hot start. And, well, if anything else, he's created a lot of just attention to the program, good attention. I know I've heard from some people, he's keeping players home, per se, because we do know transferring has become a big thing, not just in Central Florida and Polk County, but that's all around the state. So I think being able to keep those Bartow boys home was a big thing to him, and making sure we have our guys can win.
They have a little leverage there because of basketball. If you get a kid who wants to play both and is good at both, Bartow is one of those premier basketball programs where you can say, hey, play football at our school. The basketball program's right here. The coach, McGriff, is a great guy. He'll work with you as far as the transition weeks if we go deep in the playoffs, and you got the best of both worlds. So they're going to get people. Yeah, so a lot of things going on. We got a lot more teams winning too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a game that you were just at, and it was probably one of the most thrilling games of just this past week 8 slate, and it's become just over the last couple of years like the can't miss rivalry game. It's this Lakeland Christian Victory Christian game, and you're at this thriller in the final minute, and it was kind of a hero zero type moment for Coach Kendrick Stewart and Victory Christian. They're able to win the game 19-16 over Lakeland Christian, and you got to walk us through it. I mean, because this rivalry's become something else.
It was gut check time. Yeah, the back history on this. You have two great small school programs, Lakeland Christian, and they've won a lot of state championships in soccer, baseball last year. That was their second. And then you got Victory Christian. They won it all in 2A back in 2014. And they've always been to the Final Four in the state championship game a few years ago. And here's these two great small school programs. They're competing for players, Christian schools, and yet they had never played each other in all of these years until the redistricting last year. And now they had to. Now, in summer workouts, 7-7, Victory would always be over there at Lakeland Christian playing with them and some other schools. They were very familiar with each other. They just never were scheduled. So they have the first game last year, and it's over at Victory Christian at Southeastern University. And Victory got out in front of them. They had Rashad Orr now at Lake Wales. He's been there since an 8th grader, great running back. They got out in front of them. Lakeland Christian never flinched. Danny Williams is a great coach at Lakeland Christian. Kendrick Stewart's a great coach at Victory. Kendrick was the assistant when they won the state championship in 2014. He's been there ever since. And Lakeland Christian rallied, got ahead. Kendrick's team came back. I think they got 4th and long a couple times, and I thought they would have tried to kick the field goal or punted. Nope, he gambled, went for the first down, and got it. I mean, he's not afraid. And he ended up in overtime. Lakeland Christian wins on the last play of the game in overtime. Boom. So they got to meet again in the regional playoffs, and it came down to the last play again, and Lakeland Christian wins the second time on the last play. So this sets up what's going to happen out there at Lakeland Christian Friday night, back and forth. And Killian O'Neill for Lakeland Christian had 2 one-yard runs to put them out in front 16-13. And Victory had time for one more drive. They got the ball 1st and goal down on the 5-yard line with 5 seconds to go. And at this time, everybody had timeouts. So they're down by 3. I'm thinking, you're going to have to kick here, play for overtime. There's no way you're going to go for it. You're not on the 1, you're on the 5. And if you go for it here and lose to these guys again on the last play of the game, gambling, you're going to take a lot of heat for that. A lot of people are going to, the feelings are going to be crushed. Yep. And offense would come out, the defense, everybody would check each other out, timeout, and they go back their separate ways. And so when everybody's out of timeouts, here they go. They line up. They're not lining up for a field goal. They lined up in a Wildcat offense. And boom, they ran it. They scored. Zyrell Thomas took it in. He got the handoff from his brother out of the Wildcat. And he scored. Now, he literally was being tackled and just reached the ball out, and it hit the chalk on the goal line as he was going down. And you could see it. It was a legitimate score as the clock struck 0. And so Kendrick finally got his win in the 3rd time, and he gambled to do it. And you got to respect that. I don't know if I could have done that. After losing 2 times to him, I would have played it safe. Yeah, he gambled and he got it. Again, there's 2 classy programs, 2 classy schools. You interview any of them after any of those 3 games, nothing but talking about respect for the other team. And sometimes you don't see that in a lot of schools, especially They had the greatest rivalry of all time for two schools that had never played each other, because of kids going here or there, and never was a bad word said about them. I'm guessing they may see each other again. We'll see how things come out down the line. But it was a classic. And and a nice note on that. I asked Kendrick after the game, I said, when did you decide to go for it instead of kicking? Because they've had good kickers there at Victory. They've won some games that way. He said, we didn't decide till the last time out. And he said, Zyrell told him, he says, Coach, I had a dream about this, that I was going to score the winning touchdown on the last play versus Lakeland Christian. Kendrick looked at him and said, that's good enough for me. Run it. And so, yeah, he rolled the dice, and it would have been a nightmare for him had he lost. So the dream trumped the nightmare,
Yeah, that is a way to what a way to win a game, just based on, hey, I had a dream this was going to happen, and you manifested it and you let it happen, and that is what took place. What a win for Victory Christian, being able to get one. And I feel like I'm pretty sure they'll meet again in the 1S playoffs, and we'll have to have you back out there with covering those two teams. Well, another small school team that's doing really well in Polk County. They're in the almost like the most southern part of it is Fort Meade, Class 2S. I mean, undefeated.
They're undefeated, 6-0, and they got Tenorock this week, so I'm betting they're going to be 7-0. And they got a good quarterback in Carson Monstioka, if I can always pronounce that last name correctly. I think he needs about 30, 40 more yards to hit 1,000 and for the season, so that's going to happen. Fort Meade is a team that's always tough. Jamal Cornelius, for those that don't know, is the head coach there. He was a wide receiver for Urban Meyer during the national championship years at the University of Florida. And then he came right back to his alma mater, Fort Meade. He's never taken another job. And he's put together some good teams. And the only thing that happens to them, because they can play 7th and 8th graders down there at those small schools, much like Victory, they'll get a guy who will come down and play as an 8th grader or a 9th grader, and then boom, he's gone to a big school by the time he's a 10th grader. So he's never had the chance to see them pan out.
Right.
5-6 years ago, he had a team that was undefeated. Tyler King was his running back, great running back. And they went down to Pahokee, and they lost down there. Had they got past that one, they might have went the distance. So we'll see if Jamal Cornelius can take them deep into the playoffs this year. In 2 weeks, they play Frostproof. That is one of the great rivalries in Polk County for small schools. Always has been. Frostproof, Fort Meade. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, and those two teams facing off. I know that's a game you're looking forward to going. So we'll definitely have to have you out there to check out that rivalry game. Let's kind of dive in just to final thoughts, just for you, kind of jumping into maybe give us a team that's really surprised you, Bill, and then maybe a player you didn't really know too much about, but then as the season's gone on, you're like, man, this kid's really he's really standing out. So give me your kind of surprise team first.
My surprise team, and it may be a surprise I'm saying this, is Lakeland, because they lost 30 players and a head coach. And after going 1-2, I didn't know if things would go south for them. And I thought they would bounce back, looking at their schedule, and get to the playoffs and do what Lakeland does. But I didn't think, losing all those offensive players, that their defense would just rise to the occasion and just shut out after shutout after shutout. And so they're there. And, they say defense wins championships. It does. Offense wins games. But when you're in September, everything is quarterbacks and offenses. You see these high-scoring games. But I don't care any level, high school, college, or pro, when you hit November, you start watching defensive lines. And if they're hitting players in the backfield and they're headed towards the playoffs, they can go deep. And Lakeland's doing this right now. Their defense is swarming. And when they hit people, you feel it. You kind of like move in your seat a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's a surprise to me. Now, a running back out of there. They had to go 4 or 5 deep. I had to pull his name up on the roster because I had never heard of him until a couple of weeks ago when I went to do the game and they plugged him in there. Jadarius Doby. He's a sophomore. And he's a little guy, kind of a
Okay.
scat back, but tough. And I go, who's this guy? What? I haven't seen him play before because Lakeland's so deep at back. They threw him in there. He was fabulous. And of course, I ran to the coach after the game. I said, what's the skinny on this guy? He goes, yep. Yep. He goes, we've got depth. And we said, let's give him some time now. And he's going to be earning more minutes because of what he's done. So look out for that. Jadarius Doby, running back, Lakeland, number 24. They're going to, even when everybody gets back healthy, I think they're going to find a way to get him on the field at the same time too. So,
Well, I mean, you heard it here. Surprise team, which maybe they're not all, but I definitely get what you're saying just because of the start. And then I think what people, and there's all kinds of rankings out there and how people are kind of judging Lakeland's season, where they're at 5-2. And I continue to keep them at number 1 in 4S just because to me, 2 losses. Miami, New Orleans, undefeated at this point. They just defeated Miami Central, who obviously they've won 4 straight state championships. To me, that's not a bad loss whatsoever. And then
right.
St. Joe, I mean, nationally ranked. They held their own in that game, but I mean that's another team that you're not going to hang your head down on losing to the Hawks of Philadelphia. So to me, these are 2 teams that anyone could really lose to, and Lakeland I think is on the way, and dare I say maybe another game against a rival. I guess it's been this rivalry with Venice. I don't know if
It has been. It has been. You know,
yeah.
the thing about Lakeland, and we've seen this in sports so many times in football and a lot of times in basketball, you lose a star player or two, and everybody's like, oh no, maybe midseason. Well, other guys have to step up, to use the cliche. When they do, it galvanizes the team when they win. So it actually makes them better because they might not have gotten that type of playing time. Now your star that was hurt comes back in. You are much better off than you would have been had he never got hurt because those other guys wouldn't have got that playing time, those valuable minutes. Lakeland has answered the call when they've lost 4 or 5 offensive starters, quarterbacks, running backs, receivers. That defense has carried them. These guys are getting healthy. And Lakeland, after losing 30 players coming into the season, and a 74-year-old football coach who had 8 state championships and 2 nationals, they're right there now. 11 straight quarters of shutout football. And they're hitting people hard.
Well, I think we may end up seeing them back in the state championship, not back at DRV Pink, but up at Bragg Stadium up in Tallahassee. So if so, maybe another matchup with Venice that I know both teams kind of seem like they circle each other on social media, kind of chirping at each other. So we'll see. But Bill, it's always a pleasure. I know we'll talk again soon, and thank you for coming on for the Coastal.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And that is Bill Kemp with SBLive Sports Florida. He's our Polk County guy and anything else Central Florida. So give him a follow on X, formerly Twitter. And thank you for joining us on our 18th episode of The Coastal.